from DC, just a few blocks away.
Good evening, folks. Tonight we are going to make history. Can you hear me okay? All right. Okay, much better. Public service announcement. Robert Quigley, that would be me, is running for the White House in 2024. This is for real, folks. We have started our national tour. We are recording tonight with iHeartRadio. We are stopping at all of the busboys and poets across the area to start this tour. And we are going to roll all across the country for the next 2 years, giving stump speeches left, right, and center. Folks, America is at a crossroads. We all live in DC. We look at what's going on in Capitol Hill. We see stalemate with our government. We see an ineffective government. I'm from the neighborhood, as our lovely MC said. For the record, I'm Catholic. Not that that matters much in today's world because we've all got every religion in our families. But the theme we want to focus on tonight, why is our government leaving so many people behind? This is a nightmare. America is an extremely wealthy country, an extremely capable country, yet we have the highest homeless population in the world. We have mental illness that doesn't even get treated. Look at the streets downtown. Go to every major city across the country. We have folks drowning in debt. College should not be putting people into a situation of debtor servitude for life. So folks, that's the problem. Now let's talk a little bit about the key points of the presidential platform and campaign. First, we have to tackle global warming. There's no question about it. We need to take CO2 out of the atmosphere. We need to take methane out of the atmosphere. As a civilization, we are putting way more CO2 in the air than nature could possibly take out with any reasonable amount of time. We've got to build what's called a CO2 scrubber, and we've got to build hundreds of them everywhere. In addition to that, folks, we need to provide every citizen in this country with primary health care. It's absolutely crazy with our wealth that we cannot send our folks to the doctor to figure out what's wrong with them. The Quigley campaign is going to give everybody primary health care in the country. On top of that, we're going to create 30 million new business owners all across America. We're going to tweak the SBA. Right now, if you want to start a business in America, you got to put up your house. You're going to have a sterling credit record, and you're going to have decades of business experience in order to get an SBA loan. We don't agree with that at all. We want folks all across America to be able to take care of themselves. We're going to tweak the SBA. We're going to make the requirements to qualify for that loan much, much lower than where they are now because we want folks living a sustainable lifestyle with their own business. On top of that, I'll just mention 3 more key campaign points, and then I'll get a couple of questions or complaints from you guys. We also are going to tweak the FHA program. It's absolutely insane that we only have 60% of the adults in this country owning their own home. Guys, we have folks that are living from 18 to death at 70, 75 years old. They spend their whole life paying rent. This is nuts, okay? This should not be like that. We're going to tweak the FHA. Right now, the way the system works is all of the bankers around the country can tell the public they will offer an FHA loan. Basically, the federal government winds up owning all of the mortgages in America. But we let banks make it more difficult to qualify for that mortgage. We're going to eliminate the bank's ability to do that. In other words, we're going to lower the lending standards, and we're going to say, look, can the borrower afford to make that monthly payment? And if they can, they're going to qualify for that loan. End of story. So that's going to be a huge benefit to the community in DC and all across America. Another 2 major points, we have to deal with Wall Street and inflation. everybody thinks it's simple supply and demand, and in many ways it is. But all across America, we allow industries and business to price gouge and to manipulate the system so they can dig more money out of our pockets. It's not appropriate, okay? We've just gone through a pandemic, and folks should be doing a much better job taking care of each other. And so we're going to have to make some tweaks when we get to the White House in terms of how we are organizing the society on that front. And then finally, education. Everybody knows you're going nowhere in America without a good education. Whether we're talking about primary or secondary school, college should not put you in debtor servitude for life. So these are the main tweaks that we're going to make with our platform in 2024. You guys know that the last independent to win the White House was George Washington himself. And with that, folks, someone throw some questions at me, some comments. What do you think? Any ideas? Anybody? Well, don't be sure.
Police violence.
Police violence was the question.
Yes.
Okay, this is an absolutely good question, okay? We have over-policing all across America. In addition to over-policing, I'm sure everybody knows in this room that America puts more people in jail and prisons than any other country on the planet. We have to change the attitudes with the over-policing problem. Just to back up a little bit, when I graduated from college, I trained as a lawyer, and I worked as a lawyer for a few years, and then I spent 3 decades as a business owner. And I went to law school in both the United Kingdom and in the US, and very, very well qualified lawyer, but that's not important. But what is important is when we look at the details of policing in this country, the theory is you are innocent until proven guilty. The reality is the police controls your life the second you stand in front of that policeman. That is a problem. So your real question is, what is Quigley going to do about it? Well, the first step is we're not sending people to jail for minor stuff, okay? Let me just give you a point of comparison. You know, if some guy in London, for example, breaks a car window and steals a purse that's in the seat, they might be looking at, maybe 2 years in jail. They might be looking at 2 years of probation. If that same crime were to happen in the United States, there's a very good chance that that person is going to wind up in jail for 7 years. It makes no sense, because the reason why that crime was committed was because somebody was desperate. So why wasn't the society doing a better job with education, with housing, and with providing people with an ability to open their own company? Very good question. Anything else? Any other comments?
Yes.
Fire away.
With you all along, with your mission to lower FHA requirements for people to access real estate, right?
Yep.
Do you plan to include a mandatory financial literacy, because it means absolutely nothing for you to lower the standards for them to get in and they don't know how to maintain it and keep it?
Right. It's a very good question. Let me just add a little bit of detail to what I said. Right now, as we talk, if you want to qualify for an FHA mortgage, you need a 585 credit score. In some circumstances, this drops to 500. Now, we actually did research on this, and we looked at all the lenders in the entire country. 98% of them or more are allowed to put their own requirements on top of that, which basically means that the bank will say, well, we don't care what the FHA says. We're going to give you a loan if you have a 620 credit score or higher. But really what's going on is they don't want to ever have to lose any money on that loan. They're going to write it, they're going to sell it to the federal government, and that's why they've imposed that higher lending a credit score requirement. That's a problem. If you're working in Busboys and Poets as a busboy, okay, and you're only making $15 an hour, well, you know what? Maybe you're doing really well just to pay for your basic life, but you can make a mortgage payment. So the next part of your question was, well, what about the education? Well, absolutely. So that's a very, very, very good suggestion. We would do it with the SBA loans. It's already required in some areas of government lending. But the idea is to put a little internet course together, for example, and teach the borrower, hey, you're going to get this mortgage. It's going to be longer than 30 years. You're going to have a very low down payment. But the key point is you've got to manage your money on a weekly monthly basis to pay that loan. That's absolutely right. It's not complicated education. It's very reasonable, straightforward education. Very good suggestion. Thank you for that. Gentrification? Would you please elaborate?
Could you please explain more about that?
Yes, but can you, exactly what angle do you want me to take it?
Here in D.C.
Gentrification in DC for housing. So am I understanding the question, which basically in my brain is telling me, okay, affordable housing is disappearing because everybody in the world has decided that DC is the coolest place on the planet to live.
Yeah.
Is that the meaning?
Yes.
Okay, so what that really means is, what are we going to do about affordable housing? That's absolutely right. Well, there are a couple of things that we need to do. First, the government has to look at housing as not an opportunity to enrich a bank through foreclosure. So we're going to double the length of time it takes to pay the mortgage. Therefore, if somebody starts out 18, 19, 20 years old, instead of having 30 years to pay that mortgage, they're going to have 40 or 50 years to pay that mortgage. So that means as the property appreciates, they can stay in the house longer and they can live a very productive life. And the direct answer to your question is we have to build more housing. But the type of housing that we're talking about building is not what we see from the 1960s or 1970s. I got to tell you, nobody on the planet likes those types of houses. People want to live in a house like right down the street here. You see the apartments and the condos on Monroe Street, someplace that's nice that people want to call home. The Quigley administration supports that 100%. We've got to provide the housing at a reasonable cost, and we want to increase the number of property owners, is really the simple answer to your question. Good question. Anything else? Go ahead.
What's your stance on Puerto Rican statehood?
Puerto Rican statehood. Well, I got to tell you, one of my really good friends from an earlier part of my life is from Puerto Rico, and I am totally in the middle on that question. It's not my decision. I don't think it's anybody else's decisions except for the Puerto Ricans. Whatever the Puerto Ricans want is essentially where the rest of the country needs to be on that particular issue. Do you have any connection to Puerto Rico, or is that just a curious question?
Yeah, no, I'm Puerto Rican.
Okay, so what do the majority of Puerto Ricans want?
There's a debate there, but our vote doesn't count for anything, so that's why I asked.
Okay, well, Quigley is behind votes counting, because that's how democracy works. So on a national level, I would say that the vast majority of Americans would utter the very same attitude that I'm giving to you right now, which is what you want, you need to make it heard. You're doing the right thing right now by telling the next president what you think Puerto Ricans might want. I'll put it in the back of my mind. Go ahead.
Last question, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one more question and then we'll say thank you. Go ahead.
What are you going to do about right-wing extremism?
I'm sorry?
Like right-wing violence?
Okay, now that's a fantastic question. Right-wing violence. So let me answer that question. I'm gonna add a couple of points in here. We are hiring a bunch of creative writers, about 24 in total, because we are producing many books for the Robert Quigley for President campaign. And one of the topics of these books is going to be right-wing extremism. When we take this issue, what are the people complaining about on the right? Well, let's look at it. They lost their factories, their jobs, their small town parades. Most of those people live in rural America, and they feel extremely shortchanged by the behavior of the country in the last 30 or 40 years. And it's really funny because in the 1980s, it was the Republicans that pushed international trade, which caused all of those job losses and factory losses. So the right wing today is totally misguided in how to solve that problem. And I'm not going to talk about Trader Trump and all that, but what we need to understand is the right wing that you're referring to is desperately looking for a better way to live. Now, I want to contrast that real fast with the extreme left wing. Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, Antifa. They're telling us the same story. Both extremes of the political spectrum are saying we're not getting our lot in life, we're not getting opportunity to take care of ourselves, and they want change. As an independent, we're a centrist party, we're a centrist politician. We think everybody in America deserves to succeed and do well. So every policy that I talked about earlier is fair for everyone. We will do something about it, and we'll do it in a way that makes people better off. Okay, thank you very much, guys. That was great. Super questions. And by the way, the website is robertquigleyforpresident.com. I need your vote. I need your support. Join the team.